All right, we're going to be reading the story, The Tale of King Midas. Okay, day one, our goal is to learn how characters' actions influence the story. And we're going to annotate as we read, highlight, underline, that kind of thing. Okay, so watch. You don't need anything else right now. Just watch. It says, hi there. Today you're going to read a myth about King Midas. What are myths? Press play as we find out. So I think it says right there, myth is a folktale about a folktale that explains something about the world, such as frightening or mysterious natural forces. Okay.
Now read the first half
Sorry.
of.
Here we go.
Before we get started, let's revisit our essential question. How do you think you might answer this question? You can use the sentence frames in the bottom right corner if you like.
So our central question is,
Essential question. How do our actions influence our lives? Now read the first half of The Tale of King Midas, a Greek myth, on pages 12 to 15 in Ways Characters Shape Stories.
okay, so in this book right here,
Extended Read 1. Remember to annotate as you read.
The Tale of King Midas, a Greek myth, retold by Gare Thompson. Once long ago, there lived a rich king named Midas. Midas loved two things in his kingdom with all his heart. He loved his daughter, whose name was Marigold. Midas also loved gold. In fact, except for his daughter, Midas was fonder of gold than anything else in his kingdom. He loved gold more than his beautiful yellow flower garden. He loved gold more than a beautiful sunset. He loved gold more than a delicious feast. As time passed, Midas yearned for more and more gold. His dear Marigold would bring him pretty golden buttercups or yellow dandelions from his garden. Midas would smile and take the flowers. But once Marigold was out of sight, Midas would frown. "Why can't these flowers be real gold?" he wondered. "If they were, I would be so much happier." Every day Midas went to his favorite room, the treasury. There he counted his coins. Each month, his people paid their taxes in gold. Midas believed that gold gave him power. So if he had more gold, he would have more power. With more gold, he could become the most powerful ruler in the ancient world. Yet Midas was kind. He did not want to tax his people more than necessary. How then would he get more gold? "I must have more gold," Midas muttered to himself. With a sigh, he closed the door to his treasury. "I will take a walk in my garden. Maybe that will make me happy." Midas gazed out over his garden. Gold-colored buttercups, dandelions, and daisies danced in the breeze. His giant sunflowers had turned to face the sun. Their yellow petals shined like gold in the sunlight. Even the path Midas walked on had a golden glow. "My flowers are beautiful," sighed Midas, "but they are not real gold." Midas's happiness disappeared like smoke up a chimney. Upon reaching the end of the path, Midas saw a satyr asleep in a bed of his golden flowers. The satyr was a strange creature that was half man and half beast. Satyrs usually stayed in the woods, playing music and helping the Greek god Dionysus. This satyr was old and thin, and Midas took pity on him. "Poor thing, he is tired and looks hungry. I will bring him some food," thought Midas as he went into his palace's kitchen. Back in the garden, Midas gently woke the creature and offered him some bread, olives, and water. Once the satyr was finished eating, Midas sent him on his way. Satyrs were not often treated well by people. So this satyr told Dionysus about Midas's kindness. As is the way of the gods, Dionysus decided to reward Midas. Suddenly a strong wind swirled, and Dionysus appeared in Midas's palace. At first Midas was startled, but once he recognized Dionysus, Midas graciously offered the god something cool to drink. "No, thank you," replied the god. His voice was soft and melodious like a flute. "You were kind to my satyr. He is old and often falls asleep these days." "He meant no harm. My flowers are very soft and inviting," commented Midas. "To reward your kindness, I will grant you one wish." The god smiled, but also crossed his arms in a thoughtful pose. Midas was so overjoyed that he couldn't speak. Immediately he began to draw a mental list of wishes. "I could wish for a bigger palace," Midas said quietly.
Let's think about King Midas. How do his actions affect the events of the story? Let's work together to analyze how King Midas's actions drive the story. Press play.
All right, so you're going to need your pencil because go back to page 12. We're going to be underlining and annotating the text. You might want to pay attention, follow along.
Key events, the very important events that make the story move forward. While we look for those events, we are going to be noticing which events are caused by King Midas. How does King Midas's character affect the story? Okay, so let's look in the first paragraph. The first paragraph describes King Midas's main character trait. He loves gold. So I'm going to notice that this is a character trait of his. Okay, so let me maybe note that in yellow. Okay. However, this isn't an action, and I won't underline anything in this paragraph because it's not describing an action that's going to move the story forward. Actions are things that happen, okay? But I am going to make a little note that he loves gold because I think that might affect what happens in the story.
So, so she changed it into black. So you might underline that where it says loved gold. Okay, underline that part.
The first sentence of paragraph 2 does describe an action. King Midas yearns for more and more gold. So this seems important because there is a lot of emphasis on gold. They mention gold here and they mention gold here. All right, in the margin, I am going to make a little note for myself. And in my note, I'm going to write what will he do because he yearns for gold? What will King Midas do because he yearns for gold? I think that because he wants gold so much, I think that's going to affect what he does later in the story. Okay. So let's remember this part because
All right, let me pause it there so you can finish that.
I think that might help us determine how King Midas is going to affect the rest of the story. All right, paragraph 3. If we look at paragraph 3, it It describes an action. Midas goes to his treasury every day and counts his gold. However, I don't think this action is important. He does it every day, so it probably doesn't move the story forward. It's a good detail that helps us understand how obsessed Midas is with gold. It's building our knowledge about his character, but it's not an action that makes a difference in the story. It does not move our story forward. It's more of a describing detail for his character. All right. Sometimes, especially with stories, it can be hard to tell which events are important. So if you ever do come across an event like this where you're not sure if it's important, don't worry, you can always come back and underline it later if you change your mind later. All right, paragraph 4 describes another action. It says, he is too kind to overtax his people for more gold. I think this might be important because I think he's going to try to get gold in another way. So I'm going to underline this detail. So he doesn't want to take the gold from his people, so he might try to get gold in another way. I'm going to make a note for myself that in this way, King Midas's character trait is affecting what's going to happen in the story. Because King Midas is kind, he might try to get gold in another way instead of taxing his people. I'm going to add, because King Midas is kind, but obsessed with gold, he might try to get gold, but in another way, instead of taxing his people. Okay, let's keep going. Paragraph 5 describes another action.
Just make sure you get that underlined at the end of the video. I'll go ahead and pause it so you guys are able to write this, okay?
Midas takes a walk in his garden. I think something important will happen on this walk. I'll underline this, but paragraph 6 just describes the walk, so I don't need to underline that, okay? So I'm going to underline the walk, because if he doesn't go on the walk, then the rest of the story would never have taken place. So the walk is important to our story because on the walk we know that more important events will happen. We know this because we've already read the story before and we're rereading it right now. Okay? So sometimes it really does help to read the story multiple times. That way you can tell which events are the most important events when you go back and reread. All right, now you're going to keep going for the rest of the paragraphs you've read so far. You're going to pick out those most important events. What actions are happening in the story that continue to move the story forward? Which actions are the most important actions? And in the margin, you can write, how is King Midas affecting the story? Okay? We know that he is obsessed with gold, and we know he is kind. So those traits...
Now read.
Oops. So again, go ahead and underline where it says we'll take a walk in my garden. That's just foreshadowing is what we call that. Probably something is going to happen that's going to drive the story, okay? And then Midas was kind, but he did not want to tax his people more than necessary. So this part right here that she wrote is actually this, so you could see it. Because King Midas is kind, but obsessed with gold, he might try to get gold in another way instead of taxing his people.
read the rest of The Tale of King Midas, a Greek myth, on pages 16 to 19 in Ways Characters Shape Stories.
All right, let's go back to our text and let's read 16 through 19.
Is that your wish? Asked the god. No, that is not my wish, Midas quickly answered. He had to wish for something special. Suddenly, Midas sat up straight, and his eyes glowed. He knew exactly what to wish for, and his wish would indeed make him the most powerful king in the ancient world. I wish that everything I touch will turn to gold, declared Midas. He stood up and clapped, as he was so proud of and excited by his wish. Dionysus shook his head and frowned. Are you sure that is your wish? I am. Yes, it is my wish. Midas strolled quickly up and down the throne room. His smile curved upward to his ears as he noted all the objects that he could turn to gold. The god sighed. I grant your wish, King Midas. Everything you touch will turn to gold. Dionysus's voice echoed in the palace as he disappeared on a gust of wind. Midas began to wander giddily around the palace. As he went from room to room, he giggled. What to touch? What to touch? He touched his hairbrush, and it turned to gold. Midas couldn't believe his good fortune. Soon he would be the richest king in the world. He continued to touch things as fast as he could. His dining room table and chairs turned to gold. His plates, cups, forks, and spoons turned to gold. Tired from the excitement, Midas went to his bedroom for a nap. His fingers grazed his mattress, and it turned to solid gold. The golden mattress was hard and cold. Oh, well, said Midas, who preferred his soft, downy mattress. Gold is good. And with that thought, Midas fell asleep. Upon waking, Midas's stomach told him it was time for supper. Sitting at his long, newly golden table, Midas smelled the delicious food waiting for him. Marigold sat across from her father. She nibbled on a warm, fragrant piece of bread. Father, you must eat the bread. It's delicious.
Okay, so don't turn the pages. Go back to stay here. Okay, so this is important because it tells me that he's going to make a wish. Okay. Midas quickly answered he had to wish for something special. So he's going to wish for something special. Don't know what that is, obviously. So there's... And here's his wish. I wish that everything I touch would turn to gold. I wonder why he said, are you sure? Are you sure that is your wish? And he says, yes, that's my wish. He granted his wish. Everything you touch will turn to gold. So he touched everything. He says in his dining room, he touched the tables, the chairs, and turned to gold. His spoons and cups and forks and turned to gold. Even his mattress. And that he was going to be getting ready to eat. So go ahead and underline that.
A hungry Midas grabbed the bread, but before he could take a bite, the bread turned to gold. Midas quickly dropped the golden loaf. He picked up a juicy red apple, but it, too, turned to inedible gold. Oh no, cried Midas. If everything I touch turns to gold, I will never be able to eat. I could starve. Midas looked so upset and worried that Marigold's eyes filled with tears. Marigold ran to comfort her father, and without thinking, Midas hugged his precious daughter. "No!" screamed Midas in despair, but it was too late. Marigold had turned to gold. "Dionysus, please help me," pleaded a weeping Midas. Dionysus heard Midas's cries for help and appeared in the palace faster than it took for a teardrop to roll down Midas's cheek. "What is wrong?" "The wish you granted me is a curse. I see that now. I must rid myself of this terrible power." Dionysus nodded his head. Midas had learned a valuable lesson. "Go to the river and wash your hands. Once you do, things will return to normal," said the god. Midas raced to the river and washed his hands until they were as red as bricks. Then he ran back to his palace chanting, "Please let Marigold be fine." Marigold ran down the stairs and hugged her father. As tears of happiness flowed, Midas made a decision. He would give away any gold left in the treasury at the end of the year, for all that glitters is not always golden.
All right, so here's he was hungry because all the food that he touched turned into gold. Obviously, he's going to be hungry, right? So he grabbed the bread, and the bread turned into gold. So he couldn't bite it. Okay. This is important because this is an effect or a reaction to his actions, right? Because now he's able to touch everything. It doesn't work out for him, does it? Okay. And then he ran out to hug his daughter, and his daughter also turned out to gold. So now he's asking Dionysus for help. He says that the wish he granted him was a curse. And that he sees it now. He had learned a valuable lesson. Okay? And what is that lesson? Well, right here. For all that glitters is not always golden.